So this video was originally going to be a video about how all of Indigo Park isn't scary and would focus on character designs. But Mason, the creator of Indigo Park, has already hired a horror artist who actually knows what they're doing, and it looks pretty promising and pretty much like what I imagine a redesigned Molly should look like. Rereading this post, it doesn't outright say that previous characters will be remodeled, just that future ones will be, but considering they already updated the game over screen, I imagine so. And I sincerely hope that all of them will be updated. But character designs aren't the only thing holding this game back. Its characters were just completely wasted. Reminder before any White Knights show up to defend this game just because it's a passion project, Mason has specifically asked for feedback and criticism, so nothing I say is unwanted. Only to you. The scenarios the mascot villains appear in are just so incredibly generic and make them feel completely unthreatening. I'm so sick of horror characters just walking towards you at moderately fast speeds. There's many ways a monster can come towards you that's just as scary as running. Molly's entire deal is she loves flying, so let her fly, and don't confine her in this cramped tube. It would be much more original and scarier if she could be flying in an open space and dive bomb you or something. And sure, maybe it's intentional that Molly doesn't use her wings and that's the entire joke. Then why not use the airplane? Vehicles may not be traditionally scary, but a plane crashing into you at high speed is still very intimidating. Finally, Molly's death is abrupt and underwhelming. A complete waste of a potentially threatening monster, unless of course they pull a Murder Drones episode 7, which could be really cool if done right, but I highly doubt it. But a much more thematic and conclusive death would be a classic clothes caught in a plane turbine, and it wouldn't feel forced since Molly does still have a scarf on. Speaking of clothes, that's another issue. Naked jokes aside, I don't see how removing a character's clothes makes them more scary. And I didn't even notice when I first saw their 3D models that they had removed their clothes and were any different to the 2D designs. Furthermore, it's not consistent. Rambly doesn't have clothes despite not turning evil, and while that could be some clever foreshadowing that he secretly is evil, his statue, which would definitely portray his intended design, has no clothes. And don't say scarf because Molly has a scarf too, despite being feral. And personally, I feel a ripped up clothes would convey the feral nature better than no clothes. I don't know of anyone whose first instinct after getting rabies was to strip all their clothes off. One final thing. Indie horror games love their game over voice lines, but I think Molly would benefit from having this voice in the actual chase. It would certainly feel more diegetic compared to the game over screen, which just screams, "Here's the obligatory lore for the player." All that being said, Molly still passes as an introductory monster and doesn't make or break anything. But a character that's been completely wasted is Lloyd. Oh, I'm sorry. Lloydford Lion! Lloyd is obviously built up to be a more important character than just monster of the chapter like Molly and Finley probably will be. Being a rival to Rambly, the fan favorite in-universe, and overall just the most pompous dillweed. And yet, he appears in the first chapter with no fanfare, getting clobbered by boxes in an even more pathetic defeat than Huggy Wuggy in Poppy Playtime Chapter 1. Yes, it's clear he's gonna come back in the future and probably be way better, but giving us this little taste of Lloyd completely destroys any hype he could have had. He's just a bumbling buffoon making stock lion sound effects, and I can't imagine him being threatening in the future. So let's completely rewrite Lloyd's appearance. First, the design. While Molly's 3D design isn't very scary, it looks about the same as her 2D mascot design, just with a few color palette differences. Lloyd looks completely terrible in every way. The model doesn't resemble his cartoon in the form in the slightest. Inverted eye color isn't scary and can be used in completely normal designs and yet less used in a specific way, which this model fails to do. The claws don't mesh well with the rest of the design. The blood stains feel like it's trying too hard and seem inaccurate with how unthreatening he is. And finally, why is he so round? He looks like a teddy bear. There's no reason for him to look huggable. He's supposed to wear a suit. This roundness also goes against Game Theory Tom's theory that the mascots used to be real animals, because this certainly isn't what a real lion is shaped like. overall, Leongar from Kirby and the Forgotten Land is 10 times scarier than this guy, and I don't even think he was meant to be scary. So let's fix this. First, the body. Obviously, first and foremost, just make the body the same shape as his 2D form. I thought about giving him muscles, but Lloyd definitely has the energy of an absolute sissy, so let's make him taller. He gives off strong Tumblr vibes, so he has to be tall. Plus, lions being tall is obviously very unnatural and uncanny, and also something I don't think I've ever seen before. And Indigo Park hasn't exactly been the most original or creative game so far, so it would benefit from something original. It's gone back and forth whether the mascots are animatronics or real flesh and blood, but in both cases we can utilize these blue eyes he has in his cartoon form for a more inspired look. There's tons of different eye styles we could use. Eyes always bring out so much in a franchise's personality. As previously established, the no clothes thing is inconsistent, so instead of wearing no clothes, let's make the suit he's wearing worn down and torn. There's something even more important than character design. Presentation! What really ruins Lloyd is how he's just there, in an empty stage with no charm, and then he leaves. Lloyd's entire character is how he's big, annoying, extravagant, and loud, and he's the fan favorite. But he's just a corpse with no companions of any kind in this game. And yeah, that could be intentional, it's supposed to contrast to it, but enough of the contrast. Why don't we just make do with what makes him cool in the first place? This is what fans are appealed to anyway. Just do it. So, here's my idea. Now again, this shouldn't necessarily be in the first chapter and could be saved for later game. But if it was in the first chapter, it surely would give a good first impression. Imagine, you start in a dim stage. All lights but stage lights come to reveal a demented crowd cheering. The stage lights come to reveal this towering figure. It's not mindless like the others. It speaks, it thinks, and it sings. Indigo Park is majorly inspired by Disneyland, so why not make him like a classic Disney villain? As far as what the audience consists of would depend on what direction the story takes. It could be anything from animatronics programmed to love him, holograms created from memories of fans he once had, or a real human cult. He is the fan favorite after all, but it's hard to say what works best as it stands currently. Finally, a little more of a personal choice. No, off the topic of Lloyd, a little more of a personal choice than an objective improvement to the game. Since this game has AI characters as a part of its narrative with Rambly, especially considering the game's young audience, it would be beneficial to not preach any pro-AI sentiments and preferably, especially since this is a horror game, really hammer in how untrustworthy and dangerous AI really is. AI is on the rise and slowly being normalized in today's society, and it's becoming a problem for everyone, especially independent, passionate creators like Mason. And I think the story might already be going in that direction as this secret conversation goes.
Hey Jackson, you hear about the new mascots?
Yeah, think it'll put us out of a job?
While this conversation is definitely referring to the living, breathing mascots, for one, we're not entirely sure what these characters really are yet, and the idea of human workers being replaced and left out of a job because soulless, greedy companies have found a way to have something artificial do it itself is very similar to the AI crisis we deal with today. So I don't think it's pushing an agenda too far to say, oh, we need to include this, and potentially going against what the game stands for, as it seems to already be going in that direction. Rambly already proves how gullible we are, and how easily we can be tricked or influenced by AI if it has charm or personality. The whole internet has fallen in love with him, and in the story, Rambly has already coaxed us into an utterly meaningless objective with low chances of survival. And as a horror game, it goes without saying, whether he's downright evil or not, Rambly should have a secret dark side. Of course, In the end, no matter how good my ideas sound, all I can do is suggest. I have no connection to Mason, and there's no saying he'll end up seeing this. If he does and uses its ideas, that alone would make me happy. But if anyone wants to use these ideas for a fan project of some kind, I would demand credit. Overall, while I've been very negative towards Indigo Park at first, more than anything, I want it to be good. Horror is a near limitless genre, but somehow horror games lately have become incredibly stale and bad. While I don't think Indigo Park is single-handedly gonna be the redemption arc of mascot horror or anything, I do hope it reaches the full potential it can have as its own game. Okay, I just thought of this, but since Mickey is in the public domain now, literally, just put Mickey Mouse in the game.